Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Here's a quote for this episode. Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Peter Drucker. Today, we're talking about the CEO manual, founder to CEO journey, some frequently asked questions. And I want to introduce the CEO manual to you as I go through this text in the coming months and over time. So, first, I want to read an excerpt from the CEO manual. And if you don't know what the CEO manual is, you will absolutely know what the CEO manual is when we're done today. The CEO manual from founder to CEO. What is a founder? A founder is one who starts a business. What is a CEO? A chief executive officer, CEO, maintains, runs, and grows a founded business. Are the founder and CEO different people? Often they are, but they do not have to be. Consequently, some of the most prominent, well-known, awe-inspiring, and profitable organizations in the world have kept their founder intact, in control of their vision, protecting their culture, and evolving into the most powerful within not only their industries, but many industries tied to that founder's wealth and their families. If the idea of the business you created being yours for the long term matters to you, keep reading. If family legacy matters to you, keep reading. If protection from outside forces, be it capital, counsel, or the like, is of interest to you and your partners, then the CEO manual is for you. This text that I'm holding, this book process, we'll be talking about some frequently asked questions. I want to repeat, not all CEOs are founders, but all founders are CEOs. That title, Chief Executive Officer, is implicit, inherently a part of the founding of a business for those that start a business. Now, there may be multiple founders, but like any group, there will inherently be a hierarchy of dominance, a hierarchy of competence and power, and there will be a chief among individuals. Figuring out who that chief is a conversation in itself that we'll be exploring a bit of that. But this episode is about the founder to CEO journey and what is the CEO manual. So, what problems does a founder CEO face? Let's talk about isolation. When the business, there is, how about when there's no employees and it's just an idea and it's just someone pursuing that idea, pursuing customers to generate capital to make the business more real than just that idea? That in itself is isolating because people in the beginning, who's going to believe in that idea outside of the founder themselves or potentially some type of investor that they've convinced to start? But let's say there are no investors, it's just a founder. Well, oftentimes it might be a couple people that come together and start an idea. And in that respect, it's originally in one person's head, and then maybe it flows or translates to some degree to another person or person's head. So there would be founding principles. Whether there's one or multiple, there's a degree of isolation from the marketplace, from the culture, because starting something new and fresh, they're few and far between the people start things fully capitalized with every credential and, you know, even if with every credential and fully capitalized, what's the likelihood that the people in one's life that are not a part of that idea, I'm talking about interpersonal relationships, friends, family, uh, general acquaintances along the way, what's the likelihood that they're immediately just going to uh, completely support and understand that founding vision? Well, it's extremely unlikely because it's not something that's imprinted in their mind. I'd argue that people that love and care about someone, they're going to try to figure out how to protect that person more than urge them and empower them to take some of the biggest risks that they could possibly take in their life. So the paradox of love in that regard would be that those that love us act in a way that we consider hateful or against love, against our vision, against us, as we're taking the founding consciousness is taking those advices personally. So the interpersonal relationships, bringing up all the risks, reminding them of what's on the line, with the best interest of the person, caring for them, worrying about them, wanting the best for them out of love. How the person that's starting something has to convince themselves not to be scared, not to give up, not to doubt, not listen to reason, not listen to conscience, to take that risk. The founding consciousness is convincing itself of irrational idea, at some degree of irrationality. It's shutting off reason to take the leap, to take the leap into itself. And those that love them the most would be coming from love, using reason and attempting to remind them all things that could go wrong, and how that's going to be interpreted is of hate, of a lack of belief. Hate is extreme, but I think it's helpful in this word picture because it's going to feel negative, because negative emotions are going to arise as the person that's starting, the people that are starting something, are already in a state of anxiety, a lack of buy-in, a lack of resources, a lack of respect from the marketplace. They're already battling with negative emotions, anxiety, because it's an idealized future. It hasn't happened yet. And so the interpersonal relationships that care the most are most likely to give rational feedback, which would create negative emotions, which would isolate the founding consciousness from interpersonal relationships. This is what happens. People become stripped of their culture, their friends, families, communities, um, unintentionally. It's not some grand conspiracy on either party, but isolation can take place. Are there exceptions to that? Absolutely. I recommend there not being, to the best of one's ability. Now, of course, that's psychological isolation. There's going to be there's some degree of a physical isolation, in the sense that the great sacrifice it takes to found a business is time. I can't go out on Friday. I can't go out on Saturday. I might not be at that family gathering on this day. And the reason is because so much of the business, problems as a founder CEO face, isolation as a consequence of the sacrifice that it takes to found the business. Time, money, energy, all while battling the emotions everyone battles to stop them from taking risk of relationships, risk of society, risk of capital, risk of reputation. So that's a big problem that founders face: isolation. Now there's of course, we can go to isolation in the beginning before there is anything. Then there's also isolation once there is a lot of employees, a lot of resources, a lot of prestige. The pendulum has swung the other way, and now people do believe, people do admire. Who can I trust? Who can't I trust? Who wants something from me? Who is my friend? Isolation is a problem that founders, CEOs face. Boredom. Schopenhauer said life is like a pendulum that swings between pain and boredom. So you think pain would be the beginning, when there's lack of everything. Boredom could be an abundance of everything. I've replaced myself on the hierarchy. And I've far exceeded the monetary idea or concept of my worth. We're very, very, very successful. I don't even know what to do next. Now I'm bored. Let me go create more chaos. Pain, lack of resources, accountable to the market, accountable to those that didn't believe. Boredom, irresponsible, unsure of what to do next, why, who, how to get there, who do I need? Maybe not even emotionally developed enough to attract the talent at that level. Well, why? Well, if I couldn't even have tough conversations with my interpersonal relationships when I felt doubt myself and love led to reason, which I couldn't handle, why would I be able to attract and lead smarter people than me, which is what it will take? It will take attracting smarter people than me in various domains and developing trust, developing communication, feedback loops, developing an environment where people can thrive and develop and grow to take a company beyond startup phase, beyond the beginning vision, beyond sales and marketing, but to actually, organizational development. That's a problem that CEOs face. Boredom and pain, that pendulum swinging. We're not yet educated enough, aware enough, experienced enough, and tenured enough to burden the consequences of success. A lack of control is another problem the founders and CEOs face, because the feeling of control and the ability to decide is a necessary is a natural and necessary component of starting something that no one else thought of. As an organization grows and more experienced, educated, thoughtful, and competent human beings are attracted to an organization, that feeling of control must or the feeling of the need for control must subside. To give way to those that are competent, capable enough to own their verticals. So the problem that founders and CEOs face is the desire for control and the lack of it as the organization grows. And control is a podcast in itself, because it's more so an idea can develop into an ideology than a reflection of action. Like, I'm actually able to make decisions, and they're within my scope of responsibility. Then, it's like shedding the skin of the feeling of being in control, which is a psychological concept that forms to cope with the anxiety of starting something that could fail, that might not work out. And it's a to put oneself in that position of founding something that no one else did. It's so much of that stress is on the psychology of the founder, that and until one is in that position and in that position for a sustained period of time, it's maybe impossible to actually empathize and understand what happens, to the person that's in that position, like, and how they have to actually think to be able to not quit and give up on their organization. But one of the problems founders see as face in simple terms would be what the behaviors, the attitudes, the philosophies that were necessary to start the business. Some we want to keep as we grow, and others we want to cast away. And it's a very difficult puzzle to figure out which ones we want to keep and which ones that we want to give away, and even need to, so that we don't become a liability in our own business versus being a constant perpetual asset to the business. Number two question that's asked is if they don't solve, yeah. So if we don't solve these problems, what happens? Anxiety, depression, vice, distraction. Think about it like this. before we're successful, what's holding us accountable is lack of resources, lack of capital, lack of relationships, the belief of the marketplace, the belief of those interpersonal relationships that may not have believed. There's and it's we're unlikely to even be thinking more so than acting and reacting to lack, to not having. And it's the not having that leads us into action, which would lead to work, our values being tested, the competency that we have being tested, the products and services we're providing being tested. There's a lack leads to action. When there's an abundance of outcome, there's abundance of fruit, of results. That action has to come from a different place. So actually succeeding and getting the company be like to a successful standpoint where things seem to be going right, that can disincentivize the actual management from doing their job, which is to take things to the next level. And a big part of management getting to the next level is going to have a relationship with that founding consciousness. And in this case, the chief executive officer's ability to continue to inspire and move people towards that next direction. And if these problems that we're talking about, isolation and pain and boredom and a lack of control, like the inability to delegate, but also at the same time, ability to respond or demonstrate responsibility and values in another level of work is not there. Like if there's an abdication of responsibility, then people start slowing down and they're less engaged as a consequence of modeling the lack of engagement of the person they look up to for leadership. That person, if they don't solve these problems of we're talking about anxiety that is not being filtered or focused into actions. So, anxiety without a plan and without sacrifice and without enthusiasm is debilitating. Anxiety of what the future can bring with the plan, with sacrifice, with a team becomes meaningful. Now we're excited about the vision. We're excited about what we're doing. We're moving into the same direction. We have the ability to sacrifice, say no to certain things so we can focus on what we have. We have to be able to say no. If we say no and we're focused on the right things, we're checking off the boxes. We're developing a sense of pride and ownership over our role. And that has a relationship with who we are as an individual. That's going to translate or could translate to our interpersonal lives where we're less distracted with vice. And there's, this is going to be on a spectrum of how much vice one can or would be willing to involve in their business ventures. Everyone is different, and I don't, we can have our opinions of how much vice or how we define vice. You can define that in your own terms, but ultimately, let's just look at whether it's vice or whether it's doing something that has nothing to do with, or nothing to do could be on a spectrum because it's so much of the person that is labeled as the visionary is almost, it's not necessarily rooted in reason. It's rooted in nuance and feeling and intuition. It may not connect until it connects, or until, or like people don't get it until they get it. They see it and feel it. Well, that's going to have a relationship with how well the communication happens of that person that's labeled as the visionary, how bought in they could actually make everyone based on what they say and do. And when their actions are out of alignment with their words and they lose trust with the people are less likely to buy into that next vision because they don't trust the person anymore. If the person is fully bought in, engaged, and all in, and everyone believes that, that's going to make it easier to get that next vision sold to the people, because people are constantly in the dark as it relates to the visionary or the person labeled as the visionary. But that's where the visionary is integrating. And if they're not integrating, then what happens is silos form and it starts to undermine the organization's culture. And so if the founder and CEO doesn't solve the isolation and the boredom pain dichotomy, and the ability to psychologically need less, desire less control while being proportionally more responsible as there's less accountability from the market, as the company becomes more successful, that their action has to come from a place that's not just a lack of, but it comes from some deeper purpose, some next level of education and awareness and desire, then distraction. Now here's an example. If everything's going well, I was once doing 100 hours a week because there was nothing else other than to do that so that I could eat and the business could not go out of business. I might be able to do 40 hours a week now and get and look and really work 20 and look like I'm working 50. And if that's happening as a consequence of the founder CEO just not knowing what to do, having lost a sense of purpose and in a state of meaninglessness, then the negative outcomes on the business are going to be massive. You won't feel them until they hit you over the head like a hammer. And this leads to another problem that founders, CEOs, another symptom of not leveling up fast enough is betrayal. So the anxious, entitled, disengaged, distracted founder CEO. In this regard, it's the founder that's become a CEO as a consequence of they're actually being an organization now. It's not just the one versus the world. It's the group versus the competition. And there's an organization. There's actually people relying on them that can actually take a lot of the burden off of their shoulders and their back. The next consequence of not being responsible because one either doesn't want to do it or doesn't know what to do. And that doesn't, this is where it gets interesting psychologically, is that there are those that think they don't want to do it that actually do. And there's those that think they want to do it that actually don't. And part of the CEO manual process is getting clear on, do you want to do it? Or do you think you want to do it and you don't? Do you not want to do it and you actually do? Because some people don't want to build something, and they think they do. And then others think they don't want to build it and they actually really do. And so figuring out which camp we're in is going to help us be more successful in our lives in general, not just the business. But the distracted, anxious, depressed person with ultimate authority will sow the seeds for betrayal, because the disengaged leader has people that once admired them. That admiration will lead to envy, and resentment builds as a consequence of the lack of communication, direct communication, honesty, and that will build up enough for revolution. So the problems of not being clear on the next step, of being unable to graduate, or let's say elevate through the isolation phase and mature into a leader that's engaged and focused on the next steps of the vision and the next steps of the business, and is sacrificing equal or greater than the people, is betrayal. There will be betrayal, because one thing that's not going to be okay for leadership is to waste people's time. Time and potential are one, and the wasting of time potential, the people will grow resentful and there will be revolution. And so the example is, if there's someone that was working 100 hours a week, now they're, and maybe, somewhere between, now they're working 40, but it looks like everyone, they make it look like they're doing 50, but they're really doing 20. The consequences of that business, maybe they didn't want to work 100. Well, it's somewhere between more than what I just said, that 40 looking like 50 and 100. There's going to be a sweet spot there that's not going to create that's going to continue to show the sacrifice, show the values, inspire the people. It's part of the job. Like, don't start something you're not going to finish. You that's the message there is, don't lie to yourself, follow your conscience, make sure that you're working as hard as you expect your people to work. And that will define your culture. Is it real, or is it fake? But the problems, right? If we don't solve these problems, anxiety leads to distraction. Distraction leads to betrayal. I'd say that the decaying of trust is somewhere between distraction and betrayal, because our people are there. If we're living the values, our people will hold us accountable. They'll tell us what they think. We'll be able to hear it, and everyone will be working in the right direction. Why is the CEO manual helpful? Cunningham would say it's thinking time. It's to avoid the dumb tax. Shout out to Cunningham's work. Keith Cunningham would say it's the thinking time that avoids the dumb tax. I found that often founders will spend $1 million or 10 million on unhelpful solutions as a consequence of lack of awareness and education experience, having not asked enough of the right questions to eventually get to the right solutions. And the goal with the CEO manual is to lower the dumb tax, lower the cost of learning things the hard way, lower the investment into getting to the right answers, getting to the right people, getting to the right resources. So what the CEO manual is helpful because of clarity, creating clarity leading to epiphany or revelation, which will put a founder CEO more into a state of hope and excitement than anxiety and depression, which helps with being more clear on when to say no, when to say yes, what to say no to, what to say yes to, because that has a relationship with the strategy and the vision. And the CEO manual process is about not only confronting the recipient with the concepts necessary to even be thinking in this way, to take a step back and actually think. People say you have to work on the business. It's both on and in, and on is like a concept. It's a participation in thought and dialogue more than it's physically anywhere. In is sacrifice and focus and keeping commitments and acting out the values. That's why the visionary integrator is one person. It's not two people. It's actually just a leader that lives what they say and models the values. That's another reason the CEO manual is valuable, because it'll help people not unintentionally undermine their culture by, calling oneself a visionary and somebody else an integrator. There's no such thing. It's just made up in language. There are various chiefs or leaders of different verticals that are necessary to grow a business, but there's one warrior that will bring them all back, right? You give me 100 men, 10 of them shouldn't be here. 80 are nothing but targets. 9 of them are real fighters. 1 is a warrior. 9 of them are real fighters. We're lucky to have them, for they make the battle. But 1 is a warrior, and he will bring the others back. That warrior to bring the others back, is integration. It's the person that can have the conversations, knows when to talk, when to listen, what questions to ask, models the values, can see many steps ahead, can bring the others back, give people enough, like they can live in paradox. And that's not an easy thing to do. That's why having advisors is key, and who they are and what philosophies they model is key. And that's why continued education is key. Education is key. Experience is key. All these things build up because it helps the CEO live in paradox. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Living between the two worlds of what is and what could be, what is and what should be, in that place that'll either be purgatory or like living in a nuclear reactor of enthusiasm and excitement. So why is the manual helpful? Because it's going to lead to clarity, strategy, excitement, and activity going through a process of revelation, of epiphany. clearing out the cobwebs so that the person with ultimate authority can be more clear on what to say no to and what to say yes to. And a lot of it is, contextually rooted in the company's vision, strategy, goals, aims, desires, which may be unclear or not as clear as they could be, which is part of what the CEO manual serves to. So focus lowers deconstructive anxiety and increases hope, excitement to share with the team. Taking that time to work through the CEO manual is going to lower anxiety, increase excitement, clarity, giving someone the ability to articulate something to the team, to people moving in the right direction, but also clarity on who needs to be a part of this. Because if we're more clear on what we want to do and we're unsure of how, the what will presuppose the how, which will lead to the who, because it'll be who do we need to bring in? That's a big part of a CEO's role, is who do I need to attract to the organization to help get things done? How am I going to get them? They have to believe in what it is we're doing. Well, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And how do we think we're getting there? That's going to be a lot of generalizations that people have to believe in to leave a career they're currently at, leave a company currently at, to maybe stop, a business that they had started out of the absence of leadership. People, you, me, other people start businesses for all sorts of reasons. But a big part of it, or a natural part of it, would be the absence of leadership. So if now we're in the position of founding and we're the CEO, we've got to be that leader that we would have wanted prior to us starting the business. We've got to be that for others. And part of that is building a relationship, explaining what, articulating where we're going and why we're going there and how we're going there. And that is constantly evolving and changing. And it's modeled, the validity of it is modeled in the sacrifice of the leadership, like actually being engaged and being involved in the business, which a lot of that is so it's so personal. Someone can deceive themselves to thinking they're giving it all and they're leaving it on the playground. But if they've survived it, if they've surrounded themselves, which is a natural occurrence, by those that just yes them and agree with them, then that isolation will lead to not actually being as productive and engaged as one has convinced themselves they are, which undermines the whole damn business in the first place, which then leads the business, the position of that ultimate leadership to be hell. It's like, it's all I get is problems, all I get is issues, all I get is, and it's not like, yes, that's a given no matter what, problems and issues, but I'm feeling and interpreting these problems and issues as the worst thing ever, the end of the world. I'm hating, I don't even like what I've created. That doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. It's how we actually work through conflicts, interpersonal and external in the business, which comes back to time to think about what we're doing and why we're doing and how we're doing it and where we're going and why we're going there and how we're going there. And so that's what the CEO manual's purpose is, to actually help with those thoughts so that actions are more productive and more purposeful and more powerful, ultimately, so the organization's growing and getting better. So what to do is more clear and operating from a better state. Yeah, so the what and the why presuppose the how, which involves the who. The what and the why, what we're doing and why we're doing it, what we did and why we did it, what we're doing and what we could stop or should stop, and why. Clarity around that helps open up how, which includes other people, and then it's who's on our team. Are they the right people? Where are the right people? How do I get them here? I've got to be bought in. If I'm not bought in, which we reflect in how engaged am I, which has a relationship back to what am I doing and why am I doing it? I've been at this for X amount of decades. I've lost my passion for it. Well, if that's the case, who are you surrounding yourself by from a standpoint of, like, what are you reading? What education are you pursuing? What advisors do you have? Who are your partners? How are those relationships? All of these questions are a part of the CEO manual process and a part of having competent advisory, if that's something you're interested in. Whether you're interested in it or not, it's going to be a necessary component to figure out. Do you want your business? Do you think you want your business when you actually don't? And do you think you don't want your business when you actually do? So what is the CEO manual? It's a process, 121 pages. I can actually share that, and it breaks down the 3 R's of the CEO, the founder to CEO journey. Because not well, every CEO is a founder, but every founder is a CEO, and that poses a problem. How do I actually mature into that role of chief executive officer? I'm going to have to learn, or I will be more, it will be valuable to me to learn what the difference is between the two and if I'm, and how to mature into a chief of executives, regardless if I want to keep a business or sell it, because I'm moving up in the chain of business itself. I'm moving up the chain. I'm becoming a more apt business person. And that's what the 3 R's are about. Simplify that process of learning, relationships, resources, and reasons. So the manual goes through of 120 pages, questions in a very specific order to help inspire that self-realization and that process of learning, to answer the questions of relationships, resources, and reasons, the various topics and subtopics within those 3 R's of being a CEO, to ultimately grow the organization, develop the organization, make the organization more profitable, and figure out what to do with that profit, answer the big questions. If you don't even know what questions they ask, how are you supposed to get the answers that you need to have the meaningful life that you desire? It doesn't, if you don't even know what questions they ask, how do you get the answers you need to develop the meaningful life that you desire? That would be, well, so that's what we're trying to do here. Now, in my experience, I'm actually going through the CEO manual, and how it works. That's going to be on the individual, but on a personal level, I wrote it down right here. I've been at it 100, I believe 116 days. I'm on page 45. So 37.19% of the way through, I'm at it 116 days. That means I've worked on it every 2.5 days. I usually work on it for 10 minutes. I feel so much better when I've gone through it, but I'm doing this without me, to me, meaning, and it's still amazing. And so there's a value there. So there's two ways to look at the CEO manual. I'm working on it. I'm just looking at the raw facts because I've been tracking when I started it where I'm at. It's definitely not an easy process. It's definitely a process that I would say you got to really want to get to the next level to go through the CEO manual. Like, it's not going to work for you if you don't want to get to the next level. If you're not interested in understanding, are you keeping this business and having it multi-generational? Are you selling it? How? Who's a part of that? Like, if you're not interested in that, if you're not interested in figuring out how to get to the next level and really willing to put in extra work, and stuck in a phase of entitlement and the ability to not really be the leader everyone's hoping that you are, and you're still making enough money to live in whatever life that you've created for yourself is, and not interested in getting to figuring out those, what questions they ask to get to the next level, and everything seems great, I'd say keep doing what you're doing. I would make it, I do believe that there's a likelihood that it's all going to collapse and crumble, because business is not something that's delegated. Actually, it is, someone has to hold that cross, that burden, and the CEO's job is a great sacrifice. It's an all in, and like, don't start something you're not willing to finish. And if there's a great, I'll use rule number 4 in Beyond Order. Notice that opportunity lurks when responsibility has been abdicated. That, if you're on an island sipping mojitos and somebody's running your business, and you're not an investor, like, it's still your operating baby, you're going to be betrayed. Like, that's only inevitable. The betrayal is inevitable, and it's not really as much of a betrayal as you think it is. It's actually just compensation for not doing your job, and the person is probably a great person. I mean, you would lose. Who wants to work for a tyrant? Wouldn't you lose respect for somebody that you once admired that now is not doing any of the things that you did at one time that you admire them for? Wouldn't you just consider them a hypocrite and a loser and a liar and a fraud? That's what happens every day in business. People incorrectly obfuscate responsibility under the guise of delegation. They're not really delegating. They're just entitled kings and queens. Monarchy's dead. Revolution's here. Revolution is here. So if you want to actually keep your business and grow your business, and you have a calling for what you do, the CEO manual is for you. If you want to sell it and do it right without screwing people over, meaning and yourself, at the right price with the right terms that leave people at least do the best you possibly can to leave everybody that ever worked for you better in a better place, the CEO manual is for you. If yeah, the big thing is so anyway, back to me, like I've been eating my own cooking going through it without me helping me, meaning just on my own. So if you're someone that's going to go through the CEO manual process without an advisor, a culture advisor, like myself, it's going to be hard. And I challenge you to do it, and you can do it. You don't, you know, the need of external help will be relative to you. If you are interested in having advisory and help with it, then DM me and we can have a conversation about it. And I will tell you which scenario works best for you. You with someone like me, or you with me, or you alone with yourself. But the process is the goal for myself is for it to be standalone, just like I'm doing it for myself. But we can have that conversation. But the goal is for it to be standalone, but it won't be easy. And I'm basing it on actual data. Like I have 76 pages left, hundreds of questions, and I've been at this for 116 days and I'm 37.19% of the way through it. Now, what's been the outcome? Amazing. So many epiphanies, taken so much more action, things that you as listeners are benefiting from have come as a consequence of going through the CEO manual process. Our show's improving, our firm is improving, our client partners are growing and improving as a consequence of me going through the CEO manual process as the first true recipient of it, right? Living the values, it's improving those that we've been able to work and touch. And so I don't feel comfortable sharing it on a show like this and one-on-one with those that I'm having conversations with. If I'm not doing it myself and feel as though there's value there, then I won't be able to share it with the world. But how it's worked so far, and this I could see evolving over time, and especially when I'm done, I'm tracking when I start, how long I work on it. It's like 5 to 10 minutes, so that would be 7.5 minutes. So we're talking like 7.5 minutes a day, every few days, feeling a whole new person, just molting, as Jimmy DeLay would say. The feathers are falling off, becoming a better leader. Because I would say I don't consider myself a CEO. I'm a founder of Culture Matters, but where are my chiefs? Yeah, even though I advise CEOs, that could create a bias to me feeling like, oh, I'm the CEO. No, from our organizational size is, and those that work inside of Culture Matters as a consulting firm, that's still growing proportional to the growth of our customers, our client partners growing their companies. Although that I advise founders and CEOs, I'm a founder of Culture Matters, attempting to mature into the role of the chief executive officer. That's someone that has executives to lead internally and is let's say, credible enough over time to build relationships, loyal relationships, as a consequence of actual trust, as a consequence of being who I think I am over time, which means like developing deep relationships and being able to keep them and grow them and develop with them. And that is the jury's out on that. It's going to take years. And it's not just implicit. Oh, I'm the CEO. No, I decided to start something, and the question's going to become, how good am I at it? And all founders go through this at varying degrees. And many different theories pop up of what is right and what is wrong. And this is another one of, hey, I don't agree with that. And this is the way, this is the way, eh, you know, if you look at it this way, you'll benefit from it. That there's a journey from founder to CEO. You know, you are, if you're in that position of founder and CEO, you're a visionary that has a capacity to integrate, or you're a disengaged leader that's not modeling the values and undermining your culture and going to lead to betrayal because of the lack of responsibility creates a feedback of accountability of the people. The people revolt. I'll use an example actually in Beyond Order. They're talking about, I think it was Osiris stopped paying attention. It was like an old mythology. So his brother Seth betrayed him, killed him. And so Osiris is, yeah, it's because he stopped paying attention. Seth betrayed him. I mean, think about that. And then the wife of Osiris uh, had a baby, something weird, had a baby, had sex with his body. It was scattered all over the place. And then Horus was born, his son, who fought Seth, lost his eye, went to hell, gave his father in hell his eye. And the whole point was he was paying attention, and he also had to lose his part of his ability to see just to beat Seth. And yeah, it was a really, but think about that story is all thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And the lesson there is you got to be paying attention. You can't take your eye off the ball. You can't take your status for granted, your prestige for granted, your title for granted. People care until they don't. And then all of a sudden there's a revolution. I'm taking a course right now, modern philosophy in the Peterson Academy. And I have like a 95. I'm proud of that because I've been paying attention and studying. No, I haven't been studying, but in a sense, I have been studying, but not in a note taking way. But I've been watching the lectures and paying close attention and doing the best I could on the tests. And one of the topics, and I think it was lecture 5, was about the French Revolution, how the monarchy stopped paying attention. The aristocrats got resentful. They wanted to make more decisions around their right because the king is entitled and how responsible they are to their title in their actions and interactions in relation to their title will increase or decrease resentment of their mentees of the people below them that aspire to their level whatnot. So the aristocrats became disenfranchised and uh, went against, started a conversation in the Enlightenment era in the 1700s, this idea of liberality, and tried to have conversations with the monarchy, with the king and whatnot. And then they kind of backed down. But then the Jacobins, who were led by a much more, in the spirit of Rousseau, this much more elective ideology, went against and completely against the monarchy, and it digressed into this reign of terror and used the guillotine and killed the king, I believe, and destroyed everybody. 1789, the French Revolution. So there was this backswing. When you stop paying attention, evil rises up and takes what you created. And that happens every day in business. I see it, and it's in the books. And this idea in our culture today that there's this unspoken, even if it's not spoken, idea that if we're business owners and we're working, we're in our business, we're involved, we should feel shame. We should feel like we're not doing the right things or we're less than. That is a dark idea because it is a sacrifice. It is ours. We do have to work. The work never ends. It just changes. And when we become distracted, and it's not good for us or our employees or our customers or the culture, and it leads to bad things happening because the people that start it, the people at the helm, that the chief executive officer is like, it's the spirit, it's the protector, it's the invigorator, it's the innovation governor, I tell you, it's that position of absolute responsibility that when that person stops paying attention, the culture dies before it dies. So how the manual works, I'd say is going to be up to you. I can give you advice as you listen to these episodes. What I want you to think about in it, or really to pay attention, what I'm going to be doing the podcast, Culture Orange podcast. We're going to continue to do interviews. My goal is to do more than I've ever done in 25, and lectures like you've seen if you follow along, the culture topics, along with 30 Days of Thought, along with all sorts of other helpful educational content, and to go through the CEO manual, question by question, uh, theory by theory, a sentiment by sentiment. So if you follow along, listen to Culture Matters podcast, you're going to see episodes out every day. Look for the CEO manual, and if you are not at a place where you want to have it for yourself, follow along on the podcast. I'd say follow along anyway, but I'm going to be going through the CEO manual over a long time. Additionally, if you're interested in it, DM me, Jay Doran _ the Culture Man at Instagram, and we can have a conversation about it, and I'll steer you in the direction that I think is best for you. That doesn't, go against our values or put you in in a worse position, because it may be something that you actually shouldn't do until you listen to a lot of these episodes, or you should do it on your own or have help. That's not clear to me because I don't know who you are yet. So, but this is the beginning of the CEO manual process that we're on together. All right, I'm on page 45. Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and I'll see you next time.